Hi, I'm Ryan Ermer, the pastor at Slackwood Presbyterian Church, and I'm going to be doing some messages daily on our Facebook page to try to incorporate our Bible study that we've been working on since January 1st. In Christmas Eve, during my homily, I asked the congregation the question, how well do you know Jesus Christ beyond just Christmas and Easter? And then I suggested that start with the first gospel ever written, the Gospel of Mark, in January, and just read about one chapter a day to break it up so it's about 5 or 6 minutes a day. And then to get to February to read Matthew, and then here in March we're reading Luke, and then we'll read the Gospel of John as we work our way through Easter. And that suggestion took off in our church. And so not only do we have weekly Bible study guides, and this is going on in Adult Forum and in our youth group, we've connected it to our sermons. And so we've been reading these Gospels together, and we call it simply Encountering Christ. So I would encourage you to find your Bible and to read a chapter a day, and to come and to look at the study guides that we have at our website, slackwoodchurch.org. Right in the front, you'll see Encountering Christ, and under the resources, you'll see the previous weeks. But if I were you, even if you have missed a few days or you've never done it before, just to jump on right now and to download this week's study guide, and to listen to my thoughts on the questions that I pose. So here's the first question. One of the titles given to Jesus is Rabbi, or teacher. When considering the gospel accounts, name 3 teaching tools or methods that Jesus regularly utilized in order to relay information to his listeners. Maybe some of you are teachers and you know the various ways that you try to get your message across to your students. I enjoyed being a teacher and a basketball coach, and so this is a question that I enjoy because there are a lot of different ways to try to get that message across. And Jesus, as a master teacher, did that. One of the ways that he did so was using hyperbole, or exaggerated speech. And so sometimes when we're reading these Gospels, some of the things that Jesus is saying sound on the surface really harsh. And a great example of that was Sunday's message, the text that Bo chose, where he talks about hating your father and mother and brother and sister. And that's not literally what Jesus was saying for us to do, but he was just saying, where do our priorities lie, and when do we sometimes get things out of place, and where should Jesus be in terms of our priorities? And so throughout Jesus's teachings, you see Jesus using hyperbole, that he uses exaggerated speech to try to get that point across to the people that were listening. And so that's important to know as we're reading these Gospels together, that sometimes what we're reading is a tool that Jesus is using to get that message across. Talk about a second way that Jesus got his message across is through the use of parables, that he used these kinds of stories in order to convey truth in a way that maybe we might not be able to understand or comprehend if it weren't for listening to these parables. And last week, when we were reading Luke 13 through 18, that was a part of the Gospels where there's just so many great parables. The parable of the prodigal son, of the lost coin, on and on, where Jesus is trying to share these stories to convey truth. The last method that Jesus used was demonstration. That Jesus, as we see in this morning's chapter 19, the famous story of Zacchaeus, that Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house even though he was hated and despised by everybody else. And he sat down, he had a meal with Zacchaeus, and that interaction changed Zacchaeus' life forever. And we see it time after time again that Jesus isn't just talking the talk, he's walking the walk. And he is demonstrating through a variety of different ways, including these miracles, that not only demonstrated his love and compassion for the people around him, but also demonstrated who he was, that Jesus is truly the Son of God. that those demonstrations also were ways to express what he was trying to get across to the people that were around him. And so there you have 3 ways that I can think of that Jesus was a master teacher. Now, here's the second question. Jesus' teachings often seem harsh, and yet his personal interactions are very loving and compassionate. And so it's weird to have those 2 dynamics together. But I want you to think about a coach or a teacher or a family member or friend who kind of reminds you of someone that has that rough, gruff exterior, that toughness to them, but on the inside that they are extremely loving and compassionate. I can think of 2 people in my life. The first is Uncle Carlos, and he was for a long time a trucker, and he's got tattoos all over his arms. And I remember him coming to our family meals and Thanksgiving and Christmas, and he definitely spiced things up, and he always made things interesting. And so even though he had that tough exterior, is an amazing uncle and father and husband, and he's got a heart of gold, and he would do anything for the people that he loves, and he loves a lot of people. The second person that I could think of in my life that kind of reminds me of this is Herb Livesey. He's the scout for the Denver Nuggets, and he's been a part of my life ever since I was about 8 or 9 years old, where I came in and I was a Sun Devil basketball kid, and he was an assistant coach at Arizona State, and he was providing free youth basketball clinics. And from that point on, I got to know him, and I remember being a 9-year-old, and I was scared to death of him. And even then, when he let me come to his camps for about 6 years straight at Snow Valley Basketball School for free, when my parents couldn't afford to send me to a camp like that, he allowed me to go for free. And I was still scared of him, but over the course of time, where I then became a counselor and a coach, I began to realize, he's got that tough exterior to him, but he also has a heart of gold, and he is a very loving person and does whatever he possibly can to help those around him. And so maybe that is partly who Jesus was. As we are reading these Gospels together and we are encountering Christ, we are finding that Jesus is someone that says some pretty harsh things. Maybe it's hyperbole. Maybe, he had a tough upbringing. A lot of what he went through, maybe that rubbed off on that as well. But regardless, he was someone that demonstrated love and compassion to everyone that he met. So I want us to think about this for us today as what we're going through. We are going through a pretty unprecedented and challenging time, not only for us as a congregation, but within our nation and throughout the world. And to think about how these challenges that we're facing, we need to show some resilience. We need to show some toughness. But we also need to make sure that our actions are one of love and compassion, and that we are thinking about what's best for all those around us. And so I would encourage you to continue the social distancing, continue to not go in groups, continue to help people that are older or in more vulnerable positions, to see what you can do to help them out. If you are a member of our congregation, and if there's anything that I or a couple of our younger members can do to support you, reach out to us and help you in any way that we can. So we are praying and we are supporting one another, and then we are also doing the things that these experts are saying that we need to be doing to keep everyone safe and healthy at this time. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.